I had been with Sophia for 2 amazing years. For her birthday, I spent 6 months planning a perfect Cancun beach trip, dropping $5,000 on the reservation alone. I was ready to make this the most memorable vacation of her life. Then last Tuesday, she casually mentioned that she would rather spend her birthday with her college friends instead of me. My heart sank as I realized I might not be as important to her as I thought. Before I tell you the whole story, let me know where you are watching from and hit that like button if you have ever felt like second best in a relationship. Sophia and I first met at a photography workshop downtown. I was adjusting my camera settings when she walked in with this confident smile that immediately caught my attention. She had these deep brown eyes that seemed to look right through me, and when she laughed at my terrible joke about aperture settings, I knew I wanted to know her better. We ended up partnered for the day, taking portraits of each other in the old industrial district. By the end of the workshop, I had her number and a date scheduled for the following weekend. Our first date was at this little hidden Italian place where the owner still made pasta by hand every morning. I remember how her face lit up when they brought out the tiramisu with a single candle, because I had mentioned it was exactly 1 month since the workshop where we met. She called me a sentimental fool but kept that candle, and I later found it tucked into her journal. Over the next 2 years, we built something I thought was special. We took road trips up the coast, stopping at every weird roadside attraction we could find. There was this one time we stayed in a motel shaped like a giant beagle, and we laughed so hard we nearly got kicked out. Sophia documented everything with her camera, creating these beautiful photo books that lined our apartment shelves. Sophia was always full of energy, the kind of person who planned hiking trips at dawn and convinced me to try salsa dancing despite my 2 left feet. She had this tight group of friends from college that she adored. Jessica was her roommate from freshman year. Taylor was her biochemistry lab partner, and Brian was the English major who lived across the hall. They had all these inside jokes and stories that sometimes made me feel like an outsider, but I respected how loyal she was to them. We had traveled together several times before, but nothing too extravagant. Weekend trips to nearby states, a week in Colorado for skiing one winter. Sophia always talked about wanting to see the crystal blue waters of the Caribbean, how she dreamed of swimming with sea turtles and drinking coconut water straight from the source. I filed all these wishes away, planning to make them come true when the moment was right. The idea for the Cancun trip came to me after Sophia had a particularly rough performance review at work. She came home defeated, questioning her career choices and feeling undervalued. I reminded her that her 30th birthday was coming up in 6 months, and maybe we should plan something extraordinary to celebrate this new decade. Her eyes had lit up at the suggestion, and together we looked at pictures of white sand beaches and turquoise waters. What I did not tell Sophia was that I intended this trip to be much more than just a birthday celebration. After 2 years together, I knew she was the one I wanted to build a life with. I planned to propose during sunset on her actual birthday with the ocean as our backdrop. I started picking up weekend shifts at my buddy Tom's construction company, despite my already demanding job as a software developer. For 4 months, I woke up at 5 in the morning every Saturday and Sunday, working until my back ached and my hands were calloused. I saved every extra penny until I had $5,000 set aside just for this trip. I booked us into this gorgeous 5-star resort with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. I scheduled a sunset cruise, a private cenote tour, and reserved the most romantic restaurant on the beach for her birthday dinner. The restaurant even agreed to have a violinist play her favorite song while I proposed. The ring was another secret project altogether. I knew Sophia preferred vintage-style jewelry with character over modern designs. I visited 14 different jewelers before finding this perfect emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds in an antique setting. The stone matched her eyes exactly, and I could already picture it on her finger. I kept the ring hidden in my sock drawer, inside an old camera lens case where I knew she would never look. Everything was falling into place perfectly, until it was not. I first noticed something was off about 3 weeks before the trip. Sophia kept mentioning her friends more often in conversation. Jessica had broken up with her boyfriend and was going through a hard time. Taylor had just received a promotion and wanted to celebrate. Brian had tickets to this exclusive jazz show that Sophia just had to attend. These were all reasonable things, but the frequency was unusual. One Wednesday night I was making dinner while Sophia sat at our kitchen island, scrolling through her phone. I mentioned that we needed to start thinking about what to pack for Cancun since we were leaving in just 18 days. Instead of the excitement I expected, she gave me this hesitant look that immediately sent warning signals through my brain. About that, she said, putting her phone down. Jessica was thinking we could all get together for my birthday weekend. She, Taylor, and Brian want to throw me a surprise party, except Taylor accidentally let it slip. But we have the Cancun trip, I replied, the spatula frozen in my hand. We have been planning this for months. Everything is booked and paid for. Sophia sighed, twisting her hair around her finger the way she did when she was uncomfortable. I know, and it is amazing that you planned all that. But I have not had a birthday with my friends since before the pandemic, and Jessica really went all out planning this. I tried to be understanding. These were her close friends after all. But something about the situation did not sit right. Could they not plan it for the weekend before or after we get back? They all took time off work already, she explained. And Jessica booked this party venue months ago. I did not know how to tell them no. The conversation ended with nothing resolved, just this uncomfortable tension between us. I know the trip is important to you, she said before going to bed, but it is my birthday. Those words stuck with me as I lay awake that night. It is my birthday, as if the trip was solely for my benefit and not something she had been equally excited about just weeks earlier. Over the next few days, I noticed more changes in Sophia's behavior. She was constantly texting, smiling at her phone in that private way people do when sharing an inside joke. Twice that week, she came home late after helping Jessica through her breakup, and once she canceled our regular Friday dinner date because Taylor needed her advice on a work presentation. What bothered me most was how Brian seemed to be increasingly present in these group gatherings. I had always sensed a certain tension when he was around, the way he would casually touch Sophia's arm or reference memories I was not part of. He was tall, literary, and had this carefully cultivated artistic vibe that contrasted with my more straightforward personality. During the third week of April, Sophia canceled plans with me 3 separate times. First, it was a movie I had been excited to see. Then the dinner with my parents who were visiting from out of town. Finally, the cake-tasting appointment for my sister's wedding where Sophia was supposed to be my +1. Each time her friends were the reason. One evening, while Sophia was showering, her phone kept lighting up with notifications. I never snooped through her things, but the messages were visible on her lock screen. It was the group chat with Jessica, Taylor, and Brian discussing birthday weekend plans in Miami. My stomach dropped as I read Brian's message. Cannot wait for our beach weekend, just the 4 of us like old times. Miami. Beach weekend. The same exact weekend as our Cancun trip. This was not just a party that conflicted with our plans. They were planning an entire rival getaway. I felt physically sick. I had been picking up extra work for months, sacrificing sleep and weekends to give Sophia her dream vacation. And all the while she was making alternate plans with her friends with Brian. I wondered how long she had known about this Miami trip. Had she been stringing me along while waiting to break the news? When Sophia came out of the shower, I pretended everything was fine. I needed time to process what I had discovered to figure out how to approach this without letting my hurt turn into anger. So I smiled, kissed her goodnight, and then lay awake for hours, analyzing every recent interaction, looking for signs I had missed. The next day, I confided in my friend Jake over lunch. Jake had known me since high school and never sugarcoated anything. "Man, this does not sound good," he said after I explained the situation. "She is either taking you completely for granted, or there is something else going on with this Brian dude. I do not think she would cheat." I said automatically, though the seed of doubt had already been planted. "Maybe not physically," Jake replied, "but emotionally. Sounds like she is more invested in her friend's feelings than yours right now." That afternoon, I decided to talk to Sophia directly about how I was feeling. I waited until we were both home, sitting on the couch with no distractions. "I feel like I am becoming less of a priority to you," I began carefully. This Cancun trip means a lot to me, not just because of the money, but because I wanted to make your birthday special. It hurts that you would rather spend it with your friends. I expected empathy, maybe even an apology. Instead, Sophia became defensive. You are being controlling, she said, her voice rising. Just because we are dating does not mean you get to dictate how I spend my birthday. I am allowed to have friends and a life outside of this relationship. This is not about controlling you, I tried to explain. This is about respecting commitments we made together, about appreciating the effort I put into planning something special for us. See, there it is again. For us. But it is my birthday, Damien. Mine. And I get to choose how to celebrate it. The conversation escalated into our first major fight in months. We were at this little Thai restaurant we both loved, and I could see the waiter uncomfortably avoiding our table as our voices grew louder. You cannot always expect to be my top priority, Sophia finally said, tears in her eyes. I cannot always put you above everything else in my life. Those words stung more than she could know. I was not asking to be her entire world, just to be important enough that she would honor plans we had made together, plans that meant so much to me. In a last attempt at compromise, I suggested bringing her friends along to Cancun. We could change the reservations, get a bigger suite, or connecting rooms. I was willing to share this special time if it meant we could still have our trip. Sophia shook her head. It is not the same. They already planned everything for Miami. Brian found this amazing beachfront Airbnb with a private pool. Jessica has booked salsa lessons for us. I cannot ask them to change all that. Of course, it was Brian who found the perfect place. Of course. My relationship with Sophia's friends had always been complicated. Brian especially seemed to go out of his way to create an adversarial dynamic. There was the time at Jessica's Halloween party last year when I overheard him telling Sophia she was wasting her creative talents with a corporate guy like me. When confronted, he laughed it off as a joke, but the message was clear. Jessica and Taylor were not much better. They were polite when Sophia was watching, but there was always this sense that they were evaluating me and finding me lacking. Jessica often reminisced about Sophia's ex, an aspiring filmmaker named Alex, who apparently had been so perfect for her. Taylor had a habit of planning girls' nights that mysteriously extended into brunches the next day, with Sophia arriving home tired and distant. What bothered me most was how they enabled Sophia's occasional dishonesty. Like the time she told me she was staying at Jessica's after a concert because it was too late to drive home, only for me to see her tagged in photos at a club hours after